There is a legend still told in China. The Shaolin Young Forest Temple is perhaps the most famous Buddhist temple in the world. It is located in the Songshan mountain range, Henan province, in eastern central China, founded in 495 AD by Batuo, a wandering Indian monk. The temple was originally little more than a shrine, established with financial assistance from the Emperor Zheowen of northern Wei, where Batuo and his monks worked together to interpret the sacred scriptures from Indian into Chinese. Some 30 years after the temple was constructed, following Batuo's death, it is told how another Indian monk named Bodhidharma visited to find the monks sick and weak, too absorbed in their studies to take adequate care of their physical health. Bodhidharma was an expert in Kararipayattu, a South Indian fighting art that teaches fluid, animal-like movements and enables the body and mind to work together in perfect harmony. Bodhidharma decided, however, that Kararipayattu was not suitable for the monks to learn. Instead, Bodhidharma vowed to teach the monks a series of exercises he'd developed himself, which promoted physical health while at the same time teaching self-defense skills. This latter point was particularly important for the monks, realized Bodhidharma. The Chinese countryside was at that time rife with bandits and other assorted ne'er-do-wells, who would not hesitate, should such an opportunity present itself, to ransack the temple and murder the gentle monks. The exercises taught by Bodhidharma formed the basis of wushu, the martial arts, and led to the previously sickly and flabby monks developing bodies of steel, thus able to defend themselves perfectly against any possible attacker. It is not known exactly when Qi Zuwen himself was resident at the Shaolin Temple, although it was certainly several hundred years after Bodhidharma's time. So continuing a long tradition, the 15-year-old monk trained from dawn to dusk in wushu and Buddhism, arising at 4 a.m. to run, meditate, and practice kung fu. At 7 a.m. the monks ate breakfast, which like lunch and dinner usually consisted of nothing more than vegetables served with rice. Further wushu training followed, each monk gradually learning the 72 Shaolin arts, which prepared the body and mind for the rigours of martial combat. Through archery they learnt to kill at a distance, and they gained considerable expertise in the use of the staff, the sword and the spear. But they also learnt tongzi gong, a series of exercises promoting flexibility, which were closely allied with qigong or breathing exercises. This formed the basis for such unarmed wushu techniques as gangjin-jin, the diamond fist, and teigang-ti, leg like an iron pole. Through such techniques, Qi Zu-en and the other young monks learnt to kill a man with just one blow. Should in defence of their temple or their country such a thing ever, regrettably, prove necessary. The monks were also taught the healing arts, how to treat fractures and set bones, and through meditation, sat cross-legged with their hands placed one on top of the other in their laps, they concentrated on overcoming human desire. The monks had developed their lives to cultivating qi or qi, the mysterious life force that exists in everything from the smallest bug to the very universe itself. Buddhist meditation permitted the martial monk to store qi, while wushu allowed him to release it, explosively if need be. Qi Zien's name would not be known to us many years after his death, had he not one day been given a strange task by the temple abbot himself. While the other monks practiced their kicking techniques on a tree, the abbot led Qi to a small, dimly lit room that was behind the temple's main hall. Inside this room, placed upon the cracked stone floor, was a waist-high wooden barrel filled with water. A bamboo pipe emerged from one wall, water from a mountain spring splattering onto the floor. The floor was slightly angled, so that the water flowed into a drain situated in one corner. A wooden bucket stood by the pipe, so that the water could be collected if necessary. The abbot motioned at the large wooden barrel. "Hit the water with the palm of your hand," he instructed Qi. The monk advanced forward, and did as told. The cold water splashed onto his orange robes. "And again, with the other hand," said the abbot. Qi obeyed, although he'd no idea why he was being asked to do such a thing. One never questioned a command given by the abbot, however. Continue to hit the water until the level is too low for such a thing to be possible, said the abbot. When that occurs, fill that bucket with water and refill the barrel. Then hit the water with your hands again. When shall I stop, master? Asked Chi. When you are told to do so, replied the abbot, who then turned and left the room. That day, Chi spent 4 hours endlessly slapping the water with his hands. He was soaked through by the time another monk came to tell him that it was dinner. Wet as he was, he took his place at the vast communal table, ignoring the looks of the other monks as he ate. He'd been punished, he decided that evening, as the monks retired to their bunks at 9 o'clock. But for what? Chi couldn't think what it was that he might have done wrong. For 4 hours he'd been made to slap water and refill the barrel for some unknown transgression. But now it was over. Satisfied, Chi closed his eyes and allowed sleep to steal upon him. The following day, however, after lunch, the abbot made him repeat the exercise. And the next day, and the day after that. Soon a month had passed, and still Chi was being made to slap the water. Through meditation he tried to calm his slowly growing sense of irritation. Surely there was a reason for what he was doing. But if so, then what was it? He was certain now that he'd done nothing to merit the water-slapping exercise as a punishment. So why else was the abbot making him do such a thing? 1 month turned into 2, and then 3, and still Chi went each day to that small, dimly lit room and endlessly hit the water. As autumn turned to winter, the exercise was no longer just boring, but freezing also. Soon, in his prayers to Buddha, Chi was requesting the strength to tolerate this ordeal, for this was truly what it had become. The martial monks were given only a short holiday each year, and this fell over the new year. It was deemed important that the monks be able to celebrate this occasion with their families, if indeed they had such a thing. For those monks orphaned or without any relatives at all, it was permitted that they remain at the temple. Chi's father lived in the direction of the Yellow River, an 80-mile journey which Chi covered by foot in 3 days. Still learning your kung fu, eh? Said Chi's father, who everybody but Chi called Money Changer. For he owned a stall in his village where the various currencies within China could be exchanged, depending on where a person was going. Money Changer was known as being something of a wushu expert himself. It was still told how, some years before, 2 strangers had attempted to rob his stall. Money Changer had killed one of the men and crippled the other for life. Otherwise, Money Changer was considered a fairly amiable fellow, if a touch lecherous and fond of telling the odd tall story. Money Changer was also able, using only his thumb and forefinger, to bend a thick bronze coin almost in half, and it was this trick that he showed his young teenage son upon Chi's return home. Bet you still can't do it, can you, eh? He said. Chi took the coin and tried. His father was right. It seemed impossible. So they don't teach you everything at that temple then, noted Money Changer with satisfaction, pouring out 2 cups of rice wine. Father, said Chi quietly, I don't drink alcohol. You know that. Course, said Money Changer quickly, the pair of them sitting at an old, sturdy wooden table that occupied one of the 2 rooms in Money Changer's house. Money Changer drank steadily as he and his son spoke. He'd taken to drinking a little more than was good for him, ever since his wife had run off with a pig keeper. People from the village, upon hearing that Chi had returned for a short while, called in over the course of the afternoon and evening to see him. It was still considered something of a novelty that someone from their humble village had been accepted as a martial monk. Money Changer dispensed rice wine freely. He at least did not like to drink alone, and encouraged the visitors to ask his son questions concerning his training. Chi answered these questions in a calm, placid manner that was expected of a Buddhist monk. All the while, however, for how could he possibly say that for the past few months he'd spent 4 hours each day doing nothing more than slapping water out of a barrel? He began to feel like a fraud. For some reason, it seemed as though the abbot had taken against him and was trying to make him leave the temple. That was it, Chi suddenly realised. That was the reason why he was being made to do such a pointless task. Chi felt immensely depressed by his realisation. The abbot had obviously decided that Chi was not fit to be a martial monk. But why? Had Chi not always done everything he'd been asked, and endured even the toughest training, and so was intent on driving him away? With no sense of joy, Chi took part in the New Year rituals, helping his father clean the 2-roomed house, so driving away any bad luck remaining from the previous year. and applying a fresh coat of red paint to the exterior. Money Changer and his son were invited to a neighbour's house on New Year's Eve, where they partook of Buddha's Delight, a vegetarian dish that consisted of 18 different ingredients. The festivities over, Chi jogged and ran the 80 miles back to the temple, where the very next day he was back slapping water out of the accursed barrel. True, he continued to learn Gong Fu and practice meditation in the morning, but every afternoon he returned to that dimly lit room to perform his tedious, never-ending chore. Finally, exasperated beyond all reasoning, Chi dared to ask the abbot, "Master, why am I doing this?" The abbot's face instantly coloured purple. He was not a man known for tolerating insolence. He was strict, quick to berate the monks if he felt that they were slacking in any area of their training. "Do you dare question what I have told you to do?" demanded the abbot. No, of course not, master," said Chi quickly, looking humbly down at the floor. He thought that, for his rude question, the abbot might have him dismissed from the temple there and then, but the elderly man simply glowered at him before walking away. Chi watched as his hands broke the water's surface, over and over and over again. Finally, he could stoop no lower to slap the water inside the barrel, and so he used the bucket to refill it. This lasted all year, until it was again time to return home for the new year. "You must be learning a great deal," noted Money Changer, as he and his son sat at the stout wooden table. "You've been at the temple some time now." "Yes, father," said Chi quietly, depressed almost out of his mind. For nearly 18 months now he'd been made to do the same utterly pointless task. For how much longer could he continue to tolerate such ill treatment? Chi's already dark mood was made even worse by those villagers who called round to see him. Standing and sitting around the wooden table, encouraged to drink rice wine by his father, they asked him question after question concerning his training. As he tried to reply, Chi could think only of those other monks, that is, everyone at the temple but himself, who each day undertook the proper training expected of a Shaolin monk. In comparison with these others, Chi was doubtless starting to lag way behind in terms of wushu ability. As such, he'd no right to sit here in his father's home and answer questions concerning Shaolin training. It was all too obvious that the abbot wanted him to leave the temple. For how much longer could Chi stubbornly refuse to do so? New Year over, Chi trudged back to the temple. The first day's training saw him running, meditating, practicing some Gong Fu, and then immediately after lunch he went back to that small room and commenced smacking the water out of the barrel with his hands. No longer was Chi able to maintain a placid state of mind, and despite his best efforts at keeping an expressionless face, he now perpetually wore a slight frown. And it seemed to him that every time the abbot saw him, the abbot gave a slight, mocking smile. Soon, in Chi's mind, everyone at the temple was wearing the same smile, especially when he seated himself for dinner, dressed in his soaking wet orange robes. Grimly, day after grueling day, Chi awoke at 4 a.m. and steeled himself for what lay ahead. He vowed that he wouldn't quit, no matter how long he was made to slap the water out of the barrel. Sooner or later, he would triumph against such ill treatment. So absorbed was Chi in his torment that he barely took notice of the changing seasons, not even when it was again winter, so he did not notice that it no longer hurt his hands to slap the freezing water. As usual, he returned to his father's house at the end of the year. "You're not yourself, boy," said Money Changer to his son, as they sat at the stout wooden table. "Something's changed in you. There's some source of misery." "I'm fine," said Chi, his sighing voice scarcely bothering to conceal the lie. The neighbours visited to see how the Shaolin monk was progressing in his training. Chi sat at the head of the table, all around him a boisterous crowd who asked, was it true that he could jump from the ground onto a roof some 30 feet high? Was his skin impervious to fire? Could he really shatter a boulder with just one kick? Was the average lifespan of a monk around 150 years? Idiotic question followed idiotic question, each one fueled by ignorance and grossly exaggerated rumour. Soon Chi was cradling his shaven head in his hands, although this gesture of misery and ill temper was scarcely noticed by the excited villagers. "But he still can't do this," noted Money Changer with wine-fueled pride. producing his bronze coin and bending it in half for the benefit of those watching. The villagers gasped and, returning their attention to Qi, demanded to know whether it was true that a martial monk of the Shaolin Temple, of all people, was unable to perform such a basic feat of strength. Qi had heard enough. He got suddenly to his feet, as those who met his eyes recoiled at the murderous rage they betrayed. "You should know I'm a fake," he hissed. "A fraud whom the temple abbot despises. I cannot bend that coin in half. I cannot do anything. I know nothing. Not a thing!" Upon this shouted last word, his temper finally snapped and, with his right hand, he dealt the long wooden table a colossal blow, the movement exactly mimicking the one made when he had, for all those countless hours, slapped the water in the barrel. Crack! There came from the villagers a gasp of utter amazement, and a moment later Qi sufficiently recovered his wits to realise that he had, along its length, split that thick, stout wooden table almost exactly in half. It now lay in two pieces upon the floor of packed earth. Money Changer's mouth silently opened and closed as he surveyed the ruination of his finest piece of furniture. One of the villagers, an old fool named Seng Chor, who often got drunk with Qi's father, started laughing. "I know nothing," he mimicked, miming the action of Qi hitting the table with the palm of his hand. "Ha!" "Good joke," said another villager, and soon everyone was laughing, although they were still dumbfounded at what they'd just witnessed. They'd heard that the martial monks had great power in their hands, but to break a thick wooden table with just one blow? Finally, Money Changer recovered the power of speech. Slumped back in his chair, his brow sweaty and his eyes incredulous, he said, "The palm-breaking bricks. For years I tried that technique, but never could I. Oh, I wanted someone to show me, but the true Iron Hand masters choose their pupils only sparingly. It's an honour and a privilege that few are given," he babbled, his breathing fast and shallow. All at once, he grabbed hold of one sleeve of his son's orange robe. "Teach me it, Qi. Tell me how it's done, my son. Reveal the secret to your father. Whatever you have to do in order to learn it, I will." Qi stared dazedly at his father, his brain reeling at what it was trying to comprehend. "They must really like you at that temple," noted Seng Chor, all of a sudden appearing serious, "to train you in such things." And Seng Chor finished his cup of wine.